Welcome to Delta Waterfowl's The Voice of the Duck Hunter podcast. I'm your host, Joel Brice. Joining me for today's episode are Sitka President Theresa Spangler and longtime industry representative Jeff Watt. Our discussion was recorded on stage at Delta's 2025 Duck Hunters Expo in Oklahoma City. That gave us the perfect backdrop to discuss Sitka's latest clothing and gear, its heavy investment in conservation, including support of Delta Waterfowl, and how Theresa and Jeff feel that the hunting industry can and should shape a better future for ducks, duck hunting, and wild places. With that introduction, let's get started. Theresa Spangler, Jeff Watt, welcome to the Delta Waterfowl podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's exciting. The show floor, we are at the expo. Sometimes I'm a little careful to date, to put a timestamp on where we are in case the podcast comes out later, but this one's going to go out real soon. So I'm just going to tell everybody we're at the 4th annual Delta Waterfowl Expo in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. What do you think so far?
It's great. There's a ton of energy, like before the ribbon cutting ceremony, just people excited and stoked to get inside, and then you see dogs running around the building and duck calls, and just it's awesome. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Did you see the ribbon cutting?
We did.
Yeah, we were out there. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Was it dramatic?
I thought the lieutenant governor did a great job. I mean, he was very energetic and very animated with the whole deal, and talked about just this is one of the largest events that the state of Oklahoma's ever had, not only for waterfowl but for the outdoors.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I did think. I remember when we were in Little Rock the first couple of years. I think somebody, maybe the mayor of Little Rock, but I think they declared it a special day. And I felt terrible when we didn't go back there again.
Oh.
Oh well.
We went 2 years in a row.
Yeah, it's good to know that we're maybe wanted back and welcome back.
Yeah.
Well, great. So not to bury the lead too far, I think we've already set up the podcast in the introduction for the listener, but excited to talk to you both about Sitka. I think obviously a well-known brand in the outdoor industry, something that I'm very familiar with, and I have a personal history as a backcountry hunter. But I love talking about conservation with the hunting industry. I really do. And I shared this off air beforehand and saying I love talking about conservation impact, what conservation means to the outdoor industry and companies like Sitka. And then this is a softball pitch for you guys. Get to talk about the conservation work that you're doing, the funding, putting your money where your mouth is, I guess, right?
Right.
So, but let's unbox each of you a little bit. Theresa, you're the president of Sitka Gear.
I am.
That's exciting. Now, you probably didn't know this, and I didn't know it until I read it. A UND grad.
I am.
University of North Dakota. I have my
Yep.
master's from the University of North Dakota.
It's a great place. A great duck hunting place, waterfowl hunting place.
It is.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to travel a little bit outside of that Red River corridor, but not too far to the west. You can get into some good duck hunting.
Yep.
Well, that's great. And how long have you been with Sitka?
7 years have been with
7
Sitka.
years.
Mm-hmm.
And then how long the president?
Just 15 months or so.
15 months?
Yep. Yeah.
That's like, you sound like that's how a parent describes the age of their young child.
Toddler.
So when you're
A
talking
little
in
over
months.
a year. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're talking in months, I can tell it's not been all that long.
Right.
So maybe you get into that 2-year mark and you'll start rounding.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
After that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That is excellent. And so you have a biology degree from UND?
I do. I thought I was going to be an optometrist, so it was a biology with a pre-med emphasis, and I did some job shadowing, and it was interesting, but I realized pretty quickly that I couldn't do it for the next 50 years of my life. So at the time I was working for Cabela's, which loved working for Cabela's, and thought maybe this consumer space has some opportunity, and graduated with a biology degree. Yeah.
That's cool. Was it Cabela's in East Grand Forks?
It was, yep. I started as a part-time cashier, and at the time they said, we hire you in August, we lay you off in January because it's just seasonal. And I was all excited because I'm going to work for Cabela's. I had no idea what I was going to do for money in January being on my own in college, but it worked out. They kept me on for 14 years after that, so it worked out in my favor.
Yeah, that it absolutely did. How did the journey go from Cabela's to Sitka then?
Good question. So both my husband and I were working in Sidney, Nebraska, which is where Cabela's used to be headquarters. And the Bass Pro Cabela's kind of merger acquisition happened, and thought it was a new opportunity for us to explore other places in the world, and ended up getting a job at Sitka, moving to Bozeman, and haven't looked back since. So
That's great.
Yeah.
Sounds like an exciting journey.
it was great. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, quick reminiscing. When I was in grad school at I say UND like everybody knows,
Right.
right? So the University of North Dakota. So I was one of two people, another grad student, and we took care of the fish tank and the trout stream. So we did all the cleaning, and one of my favorite part was getting a fistful of night crawlers, and you could hand feed those 20-pound catfish as they would come up.
Yep.
That was fun.
Yep.
But anyway, and we didn't kill any, so I call that a success. Jeff, switching over to you, manufacturer's representative for Sitka
Yep.
Gear.
Yes.
And I did ask you, and you had a great answer, by the way. So I asked you, what does that mean to be a manufacturer's representative?
Sure. So what it is you're the salesperson in between the manufacturer and the retailer. So like Cabela's, Bass Pro, Shields, Rogers Sporting Goods, Max, those have been customers of mine for the 35 years I've been in this industry. So you talked about Theresa working at East Grand Fork. I was there for the grand opening of East Grand Fork, of the East Grand Fork Cabela's. Yeah. So it was a great time, and it was a great period of time in my life, growing with Cabela's, how they grew. When I got in the business in 1991, Cabela's had 2 stores, Sidney and Kearney, and Bass Pro Shop had 1 store in Springfield, and now they're over 170, I think, together. And so I've been fortunate enough to be part of all of that.
Yeah, you probably can't escape this one. I have this thing where when somebody introduces me by their nickname, I always feel weird. I'm like, did I earn the right to call them by their nickname? Because it's usually started with an inside joke, but I'm going to go right there. They call you the mayor.
The mayor, yeah. There's a lot that goes with that. When I started in the rep business, I had the smallest territory in the country, and I wasn't doing any business with Bass Pro Shop or Cabela's. And as they grew, my sales and my ability to dictate some of the stuff that went on in a lot of factories changed, just because of the ability to sell more product. And so one of the guys in one of the fly fishing companies that I work for came up with it, and it kind of stuck. And so that's a lot of people, that's what they call me. I don't introduce myself that way by any means. No, I'm the mayor.
Pleasure to meet you.
No, but it's just fun. This industry, you couldn't have written a better story about somebody who loves hunting and fishing, loves the outdoors, and then you get to work in it every day and make a very good living at it. And there are challenges. I'm time away from home and kids. I've got 4 boys that love the outdoors also.
Right.
One of them actually is here that works for me. And my grandfather made a comment to me a long time ago, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, find something you love to do, and if you can make a living at it, what can be better than that? And that's what I did.
Yeah, those are words to live by. They really are.
Yeah.
I use that one. I have an 18-year-old son and a 15-year-old daughter, and my son is going off to college this fall, and he is going to play baseball. He's so fixated on it. And I said, well, go after the baseball. Go for it. See how far that can take you. I said, but remember, every athlete has an end, so make sure you set yourself up for that.
Oh, I've had two
that
did it. Chase, that works here, he went and played college baseball. They, he went and chased that, and then, or no pun intended, but chased that dream, and then it ended. And you got to figure out something else to do. But it's we're fortunate. We're fortunate to be able to talk about this stuff we love to do. And to me, there's no Monday. I don't sit there on Sunday night saying, oh, man, I got to go to work tomorrow. It's like, it's just another day. And, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love my family. I like going home at the end of the day and the weekends. But I do find myself on Friday going, dang it, it's already Friday. I have more work to do. And I think that's a good sign that we all found something that we love.
Absolutely.
For sure. So I'm going to say 2 well-known folks in the outdoor industry, but you're regular people. So Theresa, can you Tell us a little bit about your relationship with hunting. When did it begin, and where is it now?
Yeah, I grew up with hunting like it was second nature.
Yeah.
So my dad was a big waterfowl hunter. Loved that was that and ice fishing. I grew up in northern Minnesota, so those
Okay.
were pretty common things. But yeah, that was just kind of the norm culturally. So grew up waterfowl hunting, and then went to school at the University of North Dakota and expanded kind of like friends that hunted and. Got into my boyfriend at the time, now husband, was part of what they called the Supreme Waterfowl Action Team, SWAT.
Oh, wow.
And they started one of the, a Delta Waterfowl chapter in Grand Forks. And so that was cool to be a part of and see. And that really kind of spurred a passion. And obviously working with Cabela's, you just get exposed to not just your, kind of your micro pursuits that regionally make sense to you, but you see kind of the world through a different lens, and really started like expanding where we were traveling to go hunting and traveling to go fishing, and got into the big game space a bit more. But yeah, really started with waterfowl hunting and a little bit of deer hunting. I remember first time I deer hunted with my dad was sitting, it was snowing out, it was freezing cold, it was northern Minnesota, and I was like the Stay Puff Marshmallow guy or
Sure.
the Michelin Man,
Yep.
like just full of bundled up with gear, sitting on the ground. And it was freezing cold, saw nothing the entire day, and it was quite the experience. But started very young. That was just a normal thing. Like when you got to that age of hunter safety, like you had to go through hunter safety and shooting with my dad, and yeah, so it was from the very beginning was just kind of the norm.
Good. You
Yeah.
still like to get out?
Love to waterfowl hunt. Yeah.
Good.
Birds in general, love it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yep.
How about you?
Pretty much grew up with it. I actually was born in Kansas City, and at 2, my parents moved me to Southern California. And so I spent 16 years in Southern California, but my dad being an avid outdoorsman too, we'd fly fish in the rivers in the San Bernardino Mountains there, go to Mammoth and fish those creeks up there, the Owens River, and then he also had a membership in a hunting club, and they had ducks there and quail and all that stuff. So we were always tagging along, whether we got to shoot or not.
Right.
That didn't happen until later. And then we'd come back to Kansas City for Christmas or holidays, and my grandfather, so his father also hunted, so they exposed us to that. And then, it probably really started to click my junior year of high school, and really my mom and dad had divorced, and my dad had moved to Seattle, and my dad said, "Hey, I'll make a deal with you two boys. I've got a younger brother and a younger sister. You guys learn how to tie flies, and I'll take you to Montana, and we'll get to fish all of these blue ribbon trout streams." And so we'd spend the summers in Seattle, and so we learned how to tie flies, and my dad did what he said. We'd go to Montana for 2 or 3 weeks, and I mean, I've been going to Bozeman since the late 70s, and so I've seen Bozeman in a totally different
It's changed quite a
different look.
bit.
Yeah.
Before it was called Brosman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Bose Angeles.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And so we learned how to tie flies, and then I played baseball myself and we moved to Kansas City, and I finished my junior and senior year in Kansas City, and got to go turkey hunting, got to do some of this other stuff. The real waterfowl hunting started about that time for me. So that would have been in 1981, 82 time frame. And so that would have been a challenging time also for waterfowl,
Yeah.
And so a lot of people here have never experienced the short seasons, and
Yeah.
I've experienced all that stuff.
Yeah.
And and it just, I went to college, played baseball. Then my junior year in college, I knew I wasn't going to be drafted or any of that stuff, and tied flies to help pay for my tuition and sent them out west to Blue Ribbon Fly Company and Madison River Outfitters. So Orvis, I tied some flies for Orvis for a while, and then my dad said, "Hey, Alaska is a great place to spend the summer, and I think that with all that you know about fly fishing, you can guide up there." And so I got a job guiding up in Alaska, and I spent 2 summers in between my junior and senior year, and then after my senior year, guiding fishermen up there, and that's when the networking started to take place, meeting people that were manufacturers, Gary Loomis, people from Scientific Angler, because if I was going to choose to go fishing, I was going fly fishing. I wasn't going, even though I can fish with anything, a bait caster, spinning rod, saltwater fish, been fortunate on that stuff. But at the end of the day, it was fly fishing, and fly fishing is what got me into the industry as a rep.
Sure.
I got finished with the guiding, and then I moved back to Kansas City, said, now what do I do? And it's somebody called and said, hey, they're looking for some rep for some of these different lines, and that's where it started.
There you go.
Yeah.
Theresa, you probably know the answer to this question, but I read here, float tube duck hunts in college.
Oh, yeah.
How does that work?
Well, so I went to William Jewell College, which is in Liberty, and there was a lake called Smithville Lake, like 20 minutes from there. And so I didn't have a boat, didn't have any money to have a boat, but I had a fly fishing float tube that we would fish lakes with out of the float tubes. And so I'm like, well, if I can get the decoys to the bank and then get everything pulled out there, hide in some of these flooded trees or brush or any of that stuff. And there was actually Kansas City Star wrote an article on me out there doing that. And so that kind of really started or not really started, but that was when this love affair with waterfowl started. And of course, you had to learn how to blow a duck call. So you can't just learn how to blow a duck call to call ducks. So I learned how to blow a duck call and competed across the world stage. So I've been to the World Duck Calling Contest 7 times through 1985 through 92, I think, somewhere in there. So it just morphed into more stuff. And now I've got private land that we manage, and we manage it farm for ducks. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, it has a way of grabbing a hold of you.
Yep, absolutely.
It just does. Well, let's switch into what I'm going to call the fun stuff, because I'm my role is chief conservation officer, so I like to I wish I got my fingernails dirtier on the job, but I don't. We have guys in the field to do that. But this is the fun stuff for me. Delta's mission: to use science-based solutions to produce ducks, conserve prairie wetlands, and ensure the future of waterfowl hunting. Does that attract you guys to
Super
Delta?
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What in particular?
I think, and the mission statement really says this, but I think from my history with Delta and what I've known about Delta, they're really, they feel like a really grassroots organization. It doesn't feel like this big enterprise that has a lot of bureaucracy, and the dollars go to what's meaningful and what matters, and I think that absolutely resonates in the mission statement.
I think so too. What about you, Jeff? What stands out about Delta to you?
I would totally agree on the grassroots. I would totally agree with getting out there and getting the work done. I think there's room for all types of conservation organizations, and some do some things better than others. And Delta is a boots on the ground. I was fortunate this spring to attend a Delta event in the PPR out of Devil's Lake, and got to do the nest checking, finding nests, finding the broods and all that stuff. But I've also been fortunate to where I've worked with other organizations, and even we started a not so much a conservation organization, but more of a private land education company, or a organization called the Osage Basin Wetlands. And it was to educate the private landowner in our Osage Basin area on how to build better duck habitat, not plant a cornfield, flood a cornfield, pull the boards, and it's over. Build habitat that these ducks can use the whole time that they're there. And through that, we also did a bunch of trapping and banding, putting GPS trackers on and all that stuff, bands, geolocating bands, regular metal bands. And so seeing everything that Chris Nicolai and the crew up there did in their surveying and just taking care of the nests and the predators, and probably one of the most powerful things to me is the predator stuff that you guys are talking about. And actually seeing it firsthand, I think anybody that's a waterfowl hunter should visit the Prairie Pothole region just to see what it is and how little water it takes for such a short period of time. So when they talk about populations and habitat, it's spot on. I mean, if that water is not there in those small potholes for those 70 days that those hens are raising their young and all that, then it's not going to happen. And it can't be 70 days late, or it can't be 2 months late or 2 months early. It's got to be in that window when they're doing all this stuff. And I think that with all of the advancement in technology, seeing the thermal drones do what they demonstrated up there, that really clicked with me, because now we're using technology that isn't just binoculars and human legs to go out there, do it, and disturbing everything, creating all that. We can use technology to go in there and not disturb it, because disruption is probably one of the key components to not only migrating waterfowl but nesting waterfowl.
Yeah, tech can be sexy. I'll use the word sexy, trendy, but with the drones, it's really impressive technology for several reasons. You know, all of our money comes through donations. You know, none of it is coming to us from, you know, appropriated tax money or anything like that. So we're always looking for ways to spend our money more efficiently, lower the cost per duck. You know, I think it's just our responsibility as a nonprofit. And so the drones actually are they have so much promise to replace really expensive and really onerous just standard practices in waterfowl, whether it's counting breeding pairs of ducks or counting broods or locating nests and different things like that. And the other thing too is we do pretty much all of our work on private land. And the footprint that, you know, that as waterfowl scientists and managers that we can put on the landscape, if we can reduce that footprint, I think it really increases our, I'll call it social license. People are much more willing to give you permission knowing that you have that. You know, you're kind of walking the walk.
Well, it's there's an accuracy component to this too, is when somebody is visually having to do it, if you happen to blink, these things are quick, you know, and maybe you only saw 2, but there were actually 6.
Yeah.
Or, you know, so the accuracy thing, I think Chris and the team were talking about how much it increases the actual counts and be able to be more accurate with it, because I think that we've been in a liberal duck season for a long time. Over 25 years. It maybe is approaching 30. And so there's a lot of hunters that aren't seeing the ducks that they feel they should be based on what they are being told.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of, I think, questioning. And now that there's new technology and new techniques to do this stuff, I think that's stuff that we need to be talking about. I mean, that was one of the reasons I attended the event up there, was for Lindsay Davis, our conservation leader, and Theresa to say, yeah, these things are legit. And I mean, you got to see them work. And that's where they're legitimate, in daylight. So people think about thermal, well, you can only do it at night. No, you can do it in daylight.
That's awesome.
So,
did you get the chance? Have you seen any of the drone in action?
Not necessarily in action. We saw like the drones
Stills.
last night and some of the still images and things like
right.
that. But yeah, not in action.
Personal invite. Anybody from Sitka can come on out next summer and we'll show you all of that stuff
Awesome.
in action.
yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, this is the exciting part for me. I told you that before we even started the recording, but we're going to talk about conservation, right? So first and foremost, you know, you're running a business. It's a for-profit business. Let's just say it. Let's not apologize for it. It is what it is. In my opinion, everything you're doing in conservation is voluntary, and it deserves applause, and it deserves that special mention. So talk to me about, you know, we'll get into the Ecosystem Grant Program and the Conservation Impact Report specifically just after this, after we go into this first part. But talk about, you have a lot of relationships with conservation groups. Talk about what that means to Sitka, it means to the brand.
Yeah, I think conservation is at our core and has been for at least as long as I've been part of the brand. It's something that I think individuals within Sitka are all really passionate about. But we know that, and this is kind of goes to almost our brand ethos, like we know humans are a part of nature. We know that we're going to be a part of nature and we have impacts on nature. We don't go into the wild and out of the wild, like we participate as part of it. And part of that job is to make sure that we sustain those ecosystems and we make efforts in conservation so that those wild places remain wild for future generations and available for us to use them while we're here on Earth. So, yeah.
Yeah. I just had a conversation with a gentleman a couple weeks ago, and this is something over the course of my career. You ask somebody, why do you like hunting? Or even more pointed, how can you kill something that you say you love so much? And I say, you know what? That's almost impossible for me to describe that. Let me show you. So let's talk about conservation. Let's talk about the ways that we give back. Let's talk about the Pittman-Robertson Act. Let's talk about, the positive outcomes of license fees and the fact that hunters will vote for license fee increases, knowing that we're giving back. And so let's let you guys show us what hunting means to you and how do you do that. So the ecosystem grant program, and if I understand it right, the impact report is a synopsis of the program. Talk to me about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so we put out an impact report. I think this is our third annual impact report that has gone out. Certainly have been making conservation efforts for longer than that. But what we really realized internally was there's a lot of big organizations and big conservation partners that we support. There's a lot of grassroots efforts that just don't gain the traction or can't get the eyeballs. And so we carve out part of our funds to really focus on those individual groups or even projects as part of larger organizations that can really make a difference locally and try to tell those stories to put more attention to what people around the world are doing to support conservation. And so the impact report is really the summation of what we covered in the last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeff, you said that one was a recent one was just released? The impact
Yeah, there
report?
was, I think, last week.
Yep.
At the end of last week would be our fiscal 25.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was sent out last week, and it went to I'm sure a broad list. And we're here because of waterfowl, but we put guzzlers in for bighorn sheep in Arizona, New Mexico, whatever. We do other types of all aspects of the wildlife or the conservation efforts out there. And so it's not just centered on one thing. And that's probably one of the best parts, is that we can almost appeal to any type of our customer, whether it be a big game guy, a turkey guy, a waterfowl guy, or a whitetail guy. There's something there. I think some of it was even rebuilding hiking trails in some of the mountain ranges around Bozeman or whatever. So, I think that without sustaining these species that we pursue, this stuff doesn't happen here.
No.
And we're all looking for something else to do. And I think you go through stages as a waterfowl hunter that every time you go, you got to shoot your limit. And then you got to be on the X, you got to shoot your limit, you got to do this, then you got to tell everybody about it. And then you morph through other stages to where you just want to watch them. You want to watch them work. They got to do it this way or we're not shooting them, and then it's just about being out there with friends. So waterfowl is such a social sport, a social event. I mean, we're cutting up, we're talking, we're having snacks, we're cooking breakfast, we're doing all of these things that a lot of they just don't understand. I think it's about the killing, and it's not about the killing. It's about everything else that goes with it. It's about the dogs. It's about the gear. There's so much more to it. Where, a big game hunter, he has a rifle and a backpack and his boots and goes and traipses, maybe a GPS, binoculars, traipses around and does that. And then when he pulls that trigger on the elk or the deer or the antelope that he's pursuing, it's possible his season's over. Whereas duck hunting, we can go every day and we can shoot a few a day,
Yeah.
And so it's a great time of year. So, but that's what it is to me. But we have to do more as our human population expands and we trespass on these wild places. We have to do more to help conserve them. So.
Yeah. We collaborated with Lindsay a couple years ago, and you guys supported a big telemetry study that Delta Waterfowl was conducting in association with a few partners. I don't know if you remember that particular project, but there's the punchline hasn't been published yet. But have you been a part of any radio telemetry projects? Have you seen the different ways that transmitters are attached to ducks?
Not in person, but certainly through video and photography, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can surgically implant them. You can put them on. They call them backpacks, single loops, double loops, and there's a lot of different ways. But that particular study, and like I said, the analyses are not complete yet, the punchline. But we're trying to find when you put a transmitter on a duck, it no longer perfectly behaves like a wild duck, right? You put a backpack on, 50-pound backpack on. You're probably not running a marathon at the same pace, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, these things are less than 20 grams. And so
Tiny, yeah.
they're teeny tiny. And so that was part of what we did with the Osage Basin for 2 years with Dr. Osborne and Dr. Askren, is installing those backpacks and the implants. We had a vet clinic there that we would shuttle the hen mallards down there. They would knock the hen mallard out, implant the implant with the antenna coming out behind their wing. And, it's fascinating what they can do, but it's also fascinating of how Mother Nature built them to do what they do, and adding anything to them changes a lot.
Yeah, they're a perfected, I'll call them a machine. But definitely, so sometimes there are questions that are so great, so important, the only way to get the answer is with a radio transmitter. So the purpose of that study was to find out which attachment style had the least impact on their normal behavior. So in any study, you have a treatment group where you did something to it, in this case a transmitter, and then you had a control group, which you didn't do anything to.
Right.
So that control group had bands, just regular leg bands put on, which are documented to not impact behavior. And so now, as you have hunter-reported harvest of banded ducks, you can learn some things from their behavior and compare it to the transmitter ducks. So be looking forward to sharing the punchline of that with you. One of the things that I hear you guys talk about a lot is interconnected relationships. And I think on the surface, that's hunters, gear, the environment. Can you guys talk a little bit about, it sounds like that's a term that you use frequently?
Yeah, I think there's a reason we chose like ecosystem grants and ecosystem specifically, because we do believe humans are an integral part of nature and the environments that we live in. And like I said earlier, we don't go in and out of, we are a part of. And we have to understand that we are going to have an impact on those ecosystems, but what can we do to offset that? Or what can we do to maintain that impact that we're having? It's all integrated. It's one planet, not the human planet and everything else.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Hey, I forgot to ask, the conservation impact reports, do you publish those
We do.
for the consumer?
Yep. So they're on our website currently. We'll send out different communications with them, but on our website.
Okay. Do you guys find that the consumer rewards you for your conservation ethos? Do you find that do you get responses from your consumers about how important that is?
Yeah, I think there's a passion just like in identifying as a hunter, and like Watt was kind of talking about it. Like this is a lifestyle, so it's not just about I shot 5 ducks today, but it's about the lifestyle I live and the community around it and how I relate to other people. And I think conservation is absolutely a part of that lifestyle. We're all passionate about whether you're shooting ducks or seeing ducks fly through the sky. We want to see more of that. So, I think it's absolutely part of the community and really important, especially to our loyal consumers. Absolutely.
Good.
I would say that we need to do. I think all of us need to do a better job. Not only the manufacturers or the vendors, but the consumers and the takers from this. And I think we're scratching the surface, because I think as we see more and more of the impact of the human race on this stuff, you're going to see more people, quote, reward manufacturers or vendors that are doing more of that. But you have to talk about it. And if you don't talk about it, then nobody knows about it. You can't expect the consumer just to find it out themselves. So we need to do a better job of letting them know what we're doing, whether it be through different programs. I think we've done a great, the retail community or the manufacturing community has done a great job when it comes to talking about our veterans and our freedom sales at Memorial Day and thanking them and all that stuff. And I think we need to take it a step farther with this conservation effort, because I love to steelhead fish and I love any anadromous fish, but my kids are not going to be able to enjoy that because they're going to be gone because we didn't take the steps years ago. I had a very good friend of mine tell me the best time to plant a tree was yesterday. And so it's the same thing with these species and ecosystems that we're talking about. Is the best time to do it was a while ago. So we need to start, and I think we're all starting with that. I think Delta's doing a great job. I think DU's doing a great job. I think RMEF, Wild Sheep, all of them are. We've got to do more of it, and not spending just spending the $20 to be a member of Delta, or 25 and or DU or whatever. That's not enough.
Right.
We got to do more.
Yeah. Yeah, not to minimize the membership, but
no,
yeah, you're
we
right.
Gotta do more.
That's an easy box to check.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it is. It's throw the challenge out there for everybody, to try to find your way. So I'll ask you to take off your Sitka brand for a second, and knowing that you've been and worked for other companies in the past, and that when you go home at night, you're you're no longer, well, are you ever not Sitka, but you know what I'm saying. What role do you think that the hunting product, the hunting industry, we'll just do one big umbrella term, what role do you think the hunting industry can play in ensuring healthy and thriving populations of wildlife?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is like breaking down the silos of manufacturers, of retailers, of camo pattern brands, of gun brands, of just conservation groups, like breaking down the silos of it doesn't matter who you're working for, what camo you wear, what gun you shoot. Like, we're all trying to put more wildlife or sustainable wildlife populations back in nature. And so let's work together. And we kind of joke internally about do it for the ducks. It doesn't matter who we're partnering with, but just do it for the ducks. I think that's a big opportunity. We can get really stuck in the day-to-day of, like, how do I be better and how do I beat this and and none of that matters to the ducks.
No. But at the end of the day, yeah, you do need to innovate as an industry provider of high quality products. Of course you do. But yeah, we're just kind of parking that aside for a second here and having some fun with it. What would you tell someone who has a industry business who's not participating in conservation? What advice would you give them?
I think that's a moment of internal reflection and really, Jeff talked about it at the beginning, just like do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Like, you got into this industry probably because you have a passion for the outdoors and there's something that tied you into that. Are you supporting that passion with what you're doing on that's also providing you income? Like, are you tying those two together, and is it are you enjoying it?
And I mean, David Snowden, who's one of the board members, I think, here at Delta, he puts it a great way. Are you a contributor, or a consumer? You probably need to be a better contributor than you are a consumer when it comes to consuming this species, right? Are you contributing enough to provide more than you're taking out of it? Because then that lets it go on for the next generations and for our kids and grandkids to be able to do. And I bet you we could talk to everybody in this place, and they didn't, this call company over here, they didn't decide to get in the duck call business because they weren't a duck hunter. And so give back, because you're taking out of it too. And I think I would say the vast majority are participating, but can the level be stepped up? I mean, we're trying to grow our sales every year. Well, if we grow our sales, can we grow our contributions also?
Mm-hmm. It all helps, I'll tell you that. Hey, I'll tell you, I am a fan of Sitka media, the short films. I really am. I really am, because I feel like, you mentioned it before, Jeff, that the attention, actually, that's putting words in your mouth. I'll make them my words. But I feel like maybe for the last decade, the attention is so much on the take. It's so much on the limit of ducks, or the last few years, the lack of a limit of ducks, right? It's the emphasis so much on the take and the antlers and the achievement, and it's so little about the journey, right? And I think that's what keeps me going, because everybody listening to this podcast, if you hunt your entire life, your relationship with hunting will change, or maybe mature is the right word. I don't know if that's the right word. That sounds a little preachy, but your relationship with hunting will change. And so one of the things that we're trying to do at Delta is to celebrate the hunt, the tradition. Tradition's a tricky word, because if you're not a hunter, you don't have a hunting tradition, right? So you got to be really careful with that. But really celebrating all of the other aspects, the journey, the experience. And I really feel like, again, I do want you to tell the listener what the role of the short films are. but of course it's the gear in action. But they're so emotional and they're so heartfelt. But
Aspirational.
But I love that. What does that mean for you guys? Just the
Yeah, we really want to position hunting as a lifestyle, and Joel, to your point, like there's a lot of components. It's not. I mean, we were duck hunting last December, and there was one really great day and one still really great day, but the ducks
harvest
that
wasn't
we
there. They
took were completely different.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, not only for people that are duck hunters to understand, like you don't have to shoot a lot of ducks to have a great day on the water. I also think it's really interesting for people that are not hunters, that like there's this whole lifestyle around hunting, and there's a lot of components. Like Jeff talks about like how they manage the land, and that doesn't start in a few weeks before season opener. Like that is a lifestyle. That's an ongoing annual thing that they manage, and I think that happens for a lot of people. And so those short films, that content that we put out is more about here's what it means to be a hunter, and here are all of the components that fit into that community and that lifestyle. It's more, there's more than just that shot to harvest an animal.
yeah.
You talked about tradition, which I'm gonna use the word tradition
Sure.
because there's more tradition in waterfowling and history in waterfowling, or there is as much as any of the pursuits. You saw some of that stuff upstairs in the foyer before the event last night with the punt gun, with the old decoys, the old jackets, all of that stuff, the old pirogues or boats that they use, skull boats, and there is so much stuff that even if a guy just started later in life, there's so much history in there and so much tradition that and some of it is maybe even unspoken tradition, that if a guy's set up over there with his spread of decoys, you don't go set right next to him. I mean, that's just an unspoken deal. You go somewhere else. He beats you to the spot. Maybe you got to get up earlier or whatever. So there's, I love to big game hunt. I love to pursue all the stuff, upland hunt, fish and all that. But there's a lot of history and tradition in waterfowl that the other ones don't have. That's super cool, whether it be old duck calls. I mean, any of that. So.
Yeah, for the listener, we were all at a gathering last night, a Delta sponsored gathering, and you walked into a museum. I call it a museum. I don't know. And it was actually, it started back in 1911, but there were beautiful old photos. There was a punt gun. There was a four-wheeler. Because we use the four-wheelers and chains to find duck nests. Yeah. There was a drone. I was in one of the pictures. Only one. But I've been there with Delta for 24 years. I was hoping for maybe two, but I'll settle for one. But it was great to walk through that little history, and we're actually going to bring a lot of that stuff back to our Bismarck office. It's not a destination. I think in a given year we might have 24 random people come, but at least on breaks we'll get to walk through and introduce new employees to our history. They get to actually look at it. But I'm glad that impacted both of you. It was pretty neat.
It was a great display. It was super interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, super well done. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to put you on the spot for just people that listen to this podcast. They hear me talk about a conversation as a funnel, right? So we start out at the top of the funnel. Well, we're about to come out the bottom. So the bottom is it's about you. So the listener, and hopefully we have lots of listeners to this episode, but what do you hope people take away from, the gear that you make? Have a second with that. But what else do you want people to take away from Sitka's feelings and role in conservation?
Certainly, yes, the gear is important. The gear is intended to enable you to get out and enjoy the outdoors, and conservation is absolutely a part of that. So if we can't conserve, maintain our wild places, then the gear doesn't matter.
Right.
So yes, we like the gear. The gear is important, but only so that you can experience those nature in its rawest form.
Yeah. Well, I do think that I do feel like that your conservation involvement and ethic is authentic. But yeah, you have to sell the gear to have the funds to contribute back to conservation.
Yep.
Yeah. I do want to say Sitka introduced me to the concept of four-way stretch.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up, hunting in, used military gear that we picked up from the surplus store. But I'm a very avid mountain hunter, and my first mountain trip, I didn't have four-way stretch, right? And so I was fighting my pants. And I have this theory. I I've never read it, I've never measured it, I've never tried, but I think that you save, when you have, like if you're wearing jeans and every time you lift your leg to climb the mountain, you're fighting your pants, but that 4-way stretch, I think that you can save 20% of your energy by not having to fight your clothes. And so that to me is the number one thing about apparel like Sitka is just.
I mean, that's how Sitka was created. Was two guys up there big game hunting somewhere in California mountains, and we need to build better stuff. We need to take what the outdoor industry and bring it to the hunting industry, because at that period of time, the gear was not very good.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the gear and the quality of the gear and what the gear can do for you allows you to stay longer so you don't get cold, so you don't get wet. So at that last light, you're able to stay out there instead of having to run for cover. You know, that's where the gear plays, is we build stuff that lets you stay out there longer, be more comfortable longer, and be able to see everything that happens.
Any exciting waterfowl gear coming out, or that'll be available? I put you on the spot. I see.
No, that's all right.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
There's a lot this
we got
fall.
we got a lot of stuff not only for this fall, for the next coming falls, but a lot of great stuff that again is just going to help the hunter be better.
Yeah.
When does the consumer start to hear about those types of?
We've got
Now,
new
we-
stuff. New stuff launched in July. Some new stuff coming in August with some new patterns and styles that we've launched previously. We've got some exciting new wader stuff coming in October. So yeah.
So what's the one big thing? You have to pick one. I'm making you. You have to pick. Not to release it in advance, but of the things you can talk about, what are you really excited about right now?
It is on our website, although a little bit subdued. We haven't been super vocal about it, but there is a new vent light wader coming out this fall. That's what will hit in October. It has our new vent light boots, so completely Gore-Tex, 100% waterproof and breathable. Watt's been wearing it for a while now.
Really?
A lot lighter than kind of the traditional wader that exists on the market today. So we're super excited to get that in people's hands.
I'm a mobile duck hunter. When I hunt, I like to, I don't know, I'm kind of nuts about it, but I like to hike to places. I don't, when I go hunting, I like to choose my partner, right? And I don't want to be around lots of other people. So I'm known for long hikes and picking those spots that no one else will go to. So I'm not a huge fan of big, heavy waders. I figure.
You'll like these.
Well, that's great. You know, like put on some knee boots, throw the waders over your shoulder.
You might not even need the knee boots.
Don't even need the knee boots. And then I pack, the warmer layers.
Yeah.
So once I get there, that's why I
Layer
think, yes, there is a role for big, heavy, insulated waders. Absolutely, don't get me wrong. But I like the real thin ones and then put on the heavy gear underneath.
Yep.
So.
Well, even if you did that, the amount you're going to carry is significantly less if you had to carry these in than you would in a normal pair. So
Perfect.
you'll love them.
I'll have to look for them. All right. Well, Theresa, Jeff, thank you both for your time.
You bet.
Hope
for
you
having
enjoy
us.
the rest of your time here at the expo, and appreciate you taking your time to speak with me and the listener.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
both.
Joel.
Take care.
All right.
Huh.